Alright. Okay, we're back. Let's see here. Gotta... Okay. Give me 1 second. Alright. That should be correct, I think. Give me 1 second here, y'all. Okay. Huh. It's not loading. Come on. Yep, just waiting here. Just waiting. Oh, what do you know? Looks like maybe it's loading now. Anyway. Now, let's get back to it, shall we? Facial sensation via the trigeminal nerve and motor response. Oh, sorry, you guys can't see that. There we go. Yeah, trigeminal, which is nerve 5, facial, nerve 7. Zozo, I just took a short break, that's all. Just a 5-minute break. An animal with a head that appears normal but exhibits paresis and ataxia most likely has a lesion in the blank or peripheral nerves. Distal. Oh, spinal cord. Spinal cord or peripheral nerves. Term, upper motor neuron. A neuron whose cell body is in the brainstem or cerebral cortex and whose axons synapse on lower motor neurons within the CNS. Okay. So it just controls lower motor neurons, I guess? Dysfunction of upper motor neurons typically results in spinal reflexes that are hypermetric or hyperreflexia, normal or increased. I really hope those mean the same thing. Reflexia. Yeah, Zozo, I don't know. If you've got any other, if anyone's got any recommendations of what else I could do, let me know. Honestly, I wouldn't mind just talking to people, that's for sure, but I also do need to study. I am in vet school. I'd like to pass. Hypermetria and hyperreflexia are not the same. Hypermetria is cerebellar dysfunction. Hyperreflexia, okay. So not exactly. Lower motor neuron results in hyporeflexia. A lower motor neuron is a neuron whose cell body is in the spinal cord's gray matter or brainstem nuclei, with axons extending into peripheral nerves to innervate muscles. Okay. You know, this isn't too bad so far. Blood lesson boy. What does that mean? Dysfunction of lower motor neurons results in spinal reflexes that are blank. Hyporeflexive. Or absent. Areflexive. The knee jerk or patellar reflex, dang it, tests the integrity of which nerve and corresponding spinal cord segments? The femoral nerve and spinal cord segments L4 through 6. A lesion in the C1 to C5 spinal cord segments would be expected to produce what type of motor signs in all 4 limbs? Maybe paresis, or just weakness. No. Upper motor neuron signs. Man, this is hard. Not getting these. Why? C1 to C5. Okay. C6 to T2 causes upper motor neuron signs in the thoracic limbs and lower motor neuron signs in the pelvic limbs. No, it's reversed. Lower motor LMN in the thoracic and UMN in the. Okay, so if it's near the brain, before the thoracic limbs and the pelvic limbs. Where am I from? No, yeah, I am studious, I suppose, or I try to be. I'm from Oklahoma, United States of America. So if there's a lesion up here, lesion just means damage of any kind. Could be due to disease, could be due to a tumor, disease, trauma. If it is before, meaning above the thoracic limb or the pelvic limb, you are going to have upper motor neuron signs in those limbs. First of all, because there's no nerve that goes from the brain to the rest of the body without going through C1 to C6. Right? Because that's where they all originate, is the brain. They go through the spinal cord. Okay, and so upper motor neuron signs are hyperreflexia. And that's pretty much the only one I can think of right now, actually. But if you were to have a lesion around the thoracic limb area, you'd have lower motor neuron disease in the thoracic limb and above, I think. It was like, well, just at the limb, I'd say. And then upper motor neuron disease in the pelvic limb. Now, I bet if you have the lesion at the pelvic limb, you'd have lower motor neuron disease in both the thoracic limbs and the pelvic limbs. I hope that's right. Let's find out. A lesion in the T3 to L3, thoracic 3, lumbar 3. So this is, about in that area. Results in normal thoracic limbs. Okay, I didn't know that. Normal thoracic limbs, but that makes sense because it's past where the brain delivers innervation to the thoracic limb. Normal thoracic limbs and lower motor neuron signs in the pelvic limbs? No. Okay, I'm confused now. Where is T3 to L3? You also read English language student a lot? Okay, that's pretty cool. Are you, what's your native language? A lesion in the L4 to S2. Okay, now this is probably around the pelvic limb. Normal thoracic limbs, and I would say lower motor neuron signs in the pelvic limb. Yes, okay, that makes sense now. Sacral. Yeah, sacral is about where your tailbone is. Well, it is where your tailbone is. Now, what is the panniculus reflex used to help localize? This is the pinching test. You kind of like pinch around. If you want to know exactly where a lesion is, you have to figure out, based on the skin, where it is by palpating. And areas that have no, what's the word? How am I blanking on this? No sensation are areas that are affected. The central nervous system is anatomically defined as the brain and spinal cord, and it is encased within the dura mater. Which lobe of the telencephalon is primarily responsible for processing vision? Occipital lobe? Occipital. Okay. The basal ganglia, including the striatum and globus pallidus, are connecting pathways within which major brain division? Cerebral cortex? No. Telencephalon. What is the clinical term for signs that arise from excessive and uncoordinated electrical discharge of neurons typically associated with motor movements? Seizures. Nigropalatal encephalomalacia in horses caused by ingesting yellow star thistle results in the death of nerves within the basal ganglia. Nigropalatal encephalomalacia. That's a very long disease name. Thank you, Zozo. I appreciate it. See you later. Thank you for watching. Which division of the cerebellum is primarily responsible for maintaining head and body position? Vestibulocerebellum. Cerebellar abiotrophy is a degenerative condition of the cerebellum that can be genetic or induced by fetal infections leading to cerebellar dysfunction. Excuse me. Which part of the diencephalon acts as an integrating station for sensory information going to the cerebral cortex? The thalamus. The reticular activating system involved in consciousness is located within which part of the brainstem? The medulla, as part of the reticular formation. An accumulation of neuronal cell bodies with a similar function within the CNS is called a tract? No, nucleus. I should have known that. A group of axons with a similar function traveling together in the brain and spinal cord is known as a This is a tract. Yeah. What are the three membranes of the meninges from outermost to innermost? Dura mater, arachnoid mater, and pia mater. Cerebrospinal fluid is located in the arachnoid space between the arachnoid and pia mater. Subarachnoid space. Yeah. Which glial cells form the myelin sheaths in the CNS? Oligodendrocytes. Which glial cells are the resident immune cells in the CNS? Microglia. Which star-shaped glial cells are involved in forming the blood-brain barrier, neurotransmitter uptake, and providing metabolic support to neurons? Astrocytes. The blood-brain barrier is created by tight endothelial junctions of capillaries and the foot processes of which glial cell? Astrocytes. Yeah. Man. Maybe I need to take another break. I'm like daydreaming. Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna take another short break. Thank you all for watching. I'll be back shortly, and see y'all in a little bit.